Sawadee Kap, Namaste, Namaskar, Aloha, and all of that stuff, right? And if I knew all your languages, I would say them all. I love language. I love language. Probably the next to God is my favorite subject, favorite thing to think about or not think about. But because language, think about it for a minute. Language is, this is a very important thing to understand. I'm sure that most of you already understand this, and that is your language is going to pretty much define what your role is in society, what your role is, what kind of friends you have. I mean, it's very powerful because think about what language is. It's the structure, the scaffolding of your mind. It's how your mind is put together. Not all of your mind, but it's the part of the mind that is involved in receiving and communicating, right? So your ability in language, and especially in communicating, we all know how important it is to communicate effectively with people, and that most of our problems that we have as people is that we don't communicate. We have communication problems. Irish sea moss. Would love to hear your thoughts about it. Well, Irish sea moth, as everyone may know, you've heard of, is basically a seaweed. It's found in the Atlantic Ocean. It's found in around Europe, America, North America, Canada, up around those areas. There, it's a red algae. And you know that there are three, seaweeds are three different kinds of algae, red, black, and green. So this is a red algae. And I think it became known as the Irish sea moss because during there was a period of famine and in Ireland. And they were able to sustain themselves using that. And then finally, when Irish, a lot of Irish people immigrated to the United States, they brought over and started those, some, what do you call it? Started up some farms. So that was a big deal. They started up those farms, and big seaweed farms in the U.S. It was a big deal, and that's why it became known as Irish sea moss. All right. So what is the good about it? Right. Well, it's have I lost my? There you guys are. Okay. All right. So anyway, so what's good about it? Well, it's of course, like all seaweed, it's got iodine, and it's got both iodines. It's got the molecular iodine, which is I2, and it's got potassium iodide. And we all remember what iodide is important for, right? Okay, it's kind of like the forgotten mineral. Yep, Irish ancestors ate a lot of seaweed. Yeah, anyway, so iodine is the forgotten mineral. Remember, just basically, real simple. Iodide, which is the anion form, right? Which means it has an extra electron, and it usually comes together with potassium. You call it potassium iodide, but you could have magnesium iodide. You could have sodium iodide. You could have calcium iodide, all of those. I remember iodides in that class of on the periodic halides, and so that's bromide, chloride, and fluoride as well, right? But anyway, so iodide is delivered to the reason you have a thyroid hormone is to deliver iodide to depolarize the mitochondrial membrane, and that increases the amount of energy being produced. And if it's not enough delivered, then there will decrease the amount of energy. And therefore, we have hypo and hyperthyroidism. So exceedingly important. And we have T4 and T3. Remember, T4 and T3. The 3 and the 4 of thyroid hormone refer to the number of iodines. Okay, what's our problem? Our problem is we don't get enough iodide in our diets. So our thyroid glands, when they're going to make thyroid hormones is going to grab a bromide or a chloride or a fluoride, whatever's around, because it doesn't have an iodide. And remember, they all have the same chemical reactivity. So yeah. Hey, can anyone tell me, is Facebook on? Somebody on, is it working? I can't tell if this is working at all because the chat overlay died. I think I'm gonna go back to not using this restream. I don't like it. What is this? One says yes, the other says no. What? With what? One says yes, it'd be good to hear my opinion. What do I think about vibration plates? You mean standing on a vibrator? I think that's fantastic. It's very important. What the old center we had here in Phuket, we would have for people who didn't even have the strength to stand up, we would have them. We had a vibration table as well. But that vibration is really good because it moves around lymphatics. It helps open up microcirculation. It's very, very important. And standing on it, and you've had those. We've got one at our center in Arizona, at an Oasis of Healing, and I'll have one wherever I open up again. So, but very, very important. Great, fantastic, and you can stand on it, and in different positions, and your biomechanical homeostatic corrective measures to maintain your posture, to maintain your uprightness, is going to bring into call other different muscle groups. So you can actually get your whole different parts of your body worked out from them. They're very, very good. So I think they're that's very good. But we were talking about Iris CMOS, and and then the iodine, the molecular iodine, two iodines together, is really important for estrogen metabolism. Anybody, can you guys, someone tell me, is Facebook is working? Oh wow, okay, amazing. Okay, so I just can't see the comments. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I have no idea. So that's the one thing about all seaweeds, but so including sea moss, right? Sea moss, which is again a red algae, and grows pretty much in the northern Atlantic areas and stuff like that. But imagine this stuff was used as far back as 400, 600 BC by Chinese and traditional Chinese medicine. So it's pretty well established. Anything that's been used that long, so has withstood the test of time, right? And that's, to me, is like completely trumps the clinical trials. Clinical trials are BS. And unfortunately, I have to make a presentation in May at in Texas, Dallas, on it'll be on vitamin C and cancer. So, but it's to a group, but there's going to be some what do you call it? Yeah, this is going to be, it's for the public, so everybody's welcome. May 4th, Dallas. What's it called? The American Ozone Association, I think it is. Yeah. So it's put on by Frank Schallenberger, who's a great. Frank Schallenberger and Robert Rowan, the two doctors, are probably the kings, the two kings of ozone in America. There's a lot of different. Europe has a whole different group, and Europe they've been doing ozone for a long time. But these two guys, they really devoted their life a lot to it. Dr. Schallenberger and Dr. Rowan. But Schallenberger will be at is putting on the conference for the ozone, and I was just invited to give a talk on vitamin C. But the reason I'm saying is I don't like to do all the scientific stuff and talk about clinical trials and all that, right? Because I don't think clinical trials are really relevant to life, okay? Because no one lives in a clinical trial. In a clinical trial, you're trying to control everything. I mean, you're trying to control one variable and to see how that has an effect on multiple outcomes, right? Lifespan, metastasis or whatever it is you're doing your clinical trial on. Well, yeah, but you know, and then they play around with statistics to try to show how they were able to adapt to, adjust for this and adjust for that, and so we really only have the effect of this one, but we don't know what the people are eating. We don't, all that sort of thing. We don't know what they're eating, what they're drinking, how well they sleep, their relationships. We don't know any of that sort of thing, right? And you can't. And then they also don't compare. They don't ever have as their the group to which they're comparing it to. They never have a healthy group. There's never a healthy group. There's never a healthy group. There's either they don't do something, like they don't eat meat, and then this group eats meat. But so what? I mean, you can not eat meat, and you could eat cheese pizzas and cheese burritos and whatever. Some of that other, ultimate burgers and stuff like that you could eat. So not just, that's not a really, but they never have a really true healthy standard to compare anything to. So I don't really, I don't really like it. And the other thing about clinical trials and all that sort of thing is that, remember something, life, there is nothing that happens in isolation. I mean, even the oxygen we breathe in the air is not 70% nitrogen. Now, we don't use that nitrogen, but it had to be there for a reason, because remember, everything in nature needs to exist because it is performing functions that we may find out one day, perhaps. All of them? Impossible. Yeah. So, but anyway, so it's got nitrogen, 21% oxygen, the rest is nitrogen. So why the heck is that? Well, actually, that's where nitrogen gets into our systems, and we need nitrogen to make amino acids. We need nitrogen to make nucleic acids, which makes up our DNA, and all of that stuff. Remember, amino acids are proteins, and all of that stuff is grabbed and fixed from the air by bacteria. And so the bacteria are responsible for making all of the amino acids, along with plants. They need plants in a relationship with plants. So in other words, biology exists because of that, because of the nitrogen. That's why we have so much nitrogen. But the point was that nothing is in isolation. We don't find anything in isolation. We find everything exists in extremely complex synergistic groups, right? So any food substance you eat, any real food substance you eat, has got all sorts of minerals and fibers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you need it all. You don't need just one aspect of it. All right. So that's what I don't like about clinical trials. They're not real life. But anyway, that's what the medical model, which is, remember, the disease theory, a morphed version of the disease theory. Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, so the fact that that this Irish sea moss has been used for centuries, for what, since 600 BC, tells you that it works, right? Things just don't continue if they don't work. Now, the other thing is that it's an incredibly good prebiotic. And remember what prebiotics are, everybody. Prebiotics, and all seaweeds are. All seaweeds. We're just talking about sea moss, the Irish sea moss, because that was the question. But we're also all seaweeds. Not only have the iodine that we can't really get anywhere else. Imagine that. I mean, in terms of seafood, I mean, animals, what they call seafood, the sea animals like shrimp and clams and whatever make up seafood, lobsters. So why don't they have the same amount of iodine as seaweed? Well, they don't have these mechanisms to extract it from the seawater, right? So you'd have to eat 100 lobsters to get the same amount you'd get in a small amount of seaweed for iodine. So but the other thing is, It's a prebiotic, and prebiotics are more important than probiotics, it turns out, because we actually probably have a sampling of every kind of bacteria in our gut, no matter what, unless we were extremely um, um, attacked by the medical system. The medical system does that. Yeah, it does that. Antibiotics, drugs. I mean, it's every let me ask someone: did you ever get anything else from the medical system besides poisons? Getting cut or getting irradiated? Did they ever give you anything else? And when you go to the hospital, what are you going to get? Yeah, think about it. Okay, so yeah, that's what you get. So anyway, so in those situations, yeah, you probably could destroy your all of your gut biome. You'd be dead. You wouldn't be able to live. But anyway, so what we know now, and all the studies show that if you the prebiotic is more important than the probiotic. Although it's helpful if you're really, really in trouble, is to take a lot of probiotics and the prebiotics with it. And I just wanted to let you know that seaweed is a good one. It's a great. It's also got some polyphenols in it, and the flavonoids, which we've talked about before, which are pigments in plants that actually protect the plant from radiation from the sun and stuff like that. Other kinds of, basically EMF. And because as you know, the colors in plants, what is a color? A color is reflecting and absorbing different segments of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? And so anyway, that's what polyphenols are. And polyphenols turn out to be including the flavonoids and all that, they turn out to be antiviral if viruses exist. They enhance the immune system. They're antioxidants big time. They're really, really, really important things. So that's in there, yes. So the Iris sea moss is really good. I'm not sure what else. You don't ever consider what the recommended daily allowance is, because the recommended daily allowance is enough so that you don't die from a deficiency syndrome. So that just enough so you're not dying of scurvy from vitamin C. It used to be 50 milligrams. Now they're up to, I think they're as high as 200 milligrams now. Wow. I don't know what the RDA does, but there's studies that show that, but 200 milligrams is crazy, not enough. We know that, right? Yeah. So anyway, and one of the other things that's very interesting about these pigments in the seaweeds, different seaweeds, and that's including not only the Iris sea moss, but wakame, a lot of them, is that they have specific anti-cancer. They turn off cancer, right? They do that. Yeah. So anyway, a lot of studies going on about it right now. It's got probably almost a lot of the B vitamins. It's got vitamin A. It's got vitamin E. It's got vitamin K, which you need for blood clotting. And the minerals, crazy with minerals. Seaweed's crazy with minerals. Zinc, phosphorus, magnesium, manganese. A lot of the really important ones that we need. So seaweed, if you ate a lot of seaweed, you'd be really, really healthy. If you ate a lot of sea moss, Iris sea moss, it'd be very, very good for you. Very, very good for you. Let me see what's another question. Another question is, what do you think of apricot seeds for CFC, for chronically fermenting cells? My doctor recommends it in the suppository. Well, Lorietta. The whole idea with, as you all know, let me see, is this right? Are we okay? Yeah, I guess so. Okay. So the whole idea with apricot seeds is the amygdalin. Now, amygdalin is a molecule that used to exist in probably almost all plants and seeds and nuts, way back when, before we started doing hybridization, which we do. We've done a lot of hybridization. We've done a lot of really toxic type farming, and so we've destroyed a lot of the natural foods. But the term for a natural food would be a wild crafted. In other words, it grew in the wild. instead of being planted. And so wildcrafted. In other words, you could try what they do. They have wildcrafted farms where they where they actually keep plants in a natural environment rather than just long rows and rows and rows of just soil turned over and stuff like that, which is not really a natural way of growing. So anyway, but the wildcrafted foods had amygdalin, and it's found in apricot kernels. It's found in a lot of seeds, but specifically apricot kernels. And so the amygdalin has a specific anti-cancer function, and that is it's made of it's got four molecules on it, right? It's got two glucoses, one benzaldehyde, and one cyanide, hydrogen cyanide. Okay, so as it turns out, cancer cells have more of an enzyme called beta glucosidase, which can grab that glucose. Because remember, they need more glucose. It grabs that glucose off of the amygdalin molecule. Okay, when it grabs it, it releases obviously the benzaldehyde and the cyanide. Now, the benzaldehyde has lots of really cool effects as well. It's analgesic. It's good for pain and things like that. It also has some other specific anti-cancer properties. In fact, it's one of the main. There's an alternative therapy. What is that one again? I never used it. I never liked to use it because if you the rules were that if you use this particular therapy, you can't use anything else, or you're extremely limited. And I don't like that. I like to be able to use many different things. Yeah, I can't remember what it was that it increased benzaldehyde, but the main way it kills the cancer directly is with the cyanide. Now, there's an enzyme because cyanide actually is a pretty common natural byproduct that occurs at a lot of times when we're eating in foods we eat and things like that. So we have an enzyme called rhodinase, which actually makes the cyanide, puts it in a position where it's no longer toxic. Okay, it adds like this, it's called a thiol group, and you're left with thiocyanate instead of cyanide. So anyway, so in cancer cells, there's a lot of beta glucosidase because they increased it. Why have they increased it? Because they need more glucose, right? Remember that. So they've increased it tremendously. And so they still have the normal amount of rhodinase. So when you look at it, they've got much more of the beta glucosidase. So they're producing a lot of cyanide that they cannot neutralize because there's not enough rhodinase. Well, a healthy cell will have the opposite. It doesn't need a lot of glucosidase, but it has still has the same amount of rhodinase. So if it grabs any of the amygdalin and with its this enzyme, the beta glucosidase, it's going to be able to neutralize it easily. So that's just how that works. That's really cool. So you can get it. So this all came to our attention with the Hunzes. You all know the Hunzes, the people that live to 130, 140, up 150, up in the Himalayas, in the north of Pakistan in the Himalayas. And they came to our attention, and they're like, they eat pretty close to raw, uncooked food. They eat whatever they can grow. One of the great things the Hunzes do that is pretty amazing is that, they only eat the food they can grow. So there's 3 months out of the year that they can't, that not enough food grows to eat. So what they have done, what they have developed over the centuries, is they keep the apricot because they have lots of apricot trees. So they keep the apricots and they make an apricot juice. And so for 3 months of the year, they drink apricot juice. Can you imagine? Talk about a cleanse, 3-month cleanse on apricot juice. That's what they do. But anyway, but they eat the kernels and all that, so they have a lot of the amygdalin. Amygdalin later became known as B17, and it also became known as laetrile. But laetrile is not the natural substance. But in terms of apricot seeds, so my answer to you, Lorietta, is that the problem with okay, so now remember, so you can get IV. When we give IV, when we give it IV, we're giving 9 grams. That's a lot. IV daily, you can give up to 15. And it actually helps with pain. IV. So we give 9 grams for about 21 days, and that totally saturates all the cells in the body. And then you can do an oral maintenance dose of, let's say, now, here's how you know you're doing enough B17. Or you're doing as much as you can. The bacteria in our gut, a lot of them have similar enzyme systems and enzyme and metabolic requirements as do chronically fermenting cells, right? So chronically fermenting cells, as we said, have lots of beta-glucosidase and just small amounts of the rhodinase. So do some microorganisms in our gut. So if you're eating apricot seeds, or you've got a supplement of B17, of pure amygdalin, and you're eating it, what's going to happen is that the bacteria are going to eat it and produce cyanide. And so you could actually orally, you could take too much and die, literally die, from taking too much B17 orally. But you don't just go from being fine to dying. You don't feel very good. So you can tell if you're eating too much. But the problem with, let's say you take a handful of apricot seeds every day, right? Well, one day you might have gotten a different batch where because the seeds are not like uniform. They have they have 0.5 milligrams or 5 milligrams. They're not like that, right? So you take a handful, and on one day it could be fine, and the next day it can make you super, super sick. So if you get too much. So this is one of the times where it's difficult. Now rectally, I'm not sure I've never heard that. I'm not sure what your doctor was why he was saying that, or he or she was saying that, because rectally, if it's in the bottom, if it's in the, what they call the distal, the part of the rectum that is closest to the anus, 2/3 of that will be, the veins go directly into the main vein of the body called the vena cava. So it does not go through the liver. And if it doesn't go through the liver, it's not going to get metabolized and stuff like that. So anyway, I just don't know. I've never heard of it that way. So, I mean, if your doctor knows, but remember, it's still in your GI tract, because the rectum is still the gastrointestinal tract. It's still going to have bacteria, and those bacteria could still have a lot more of the beta-glucosidase, so they could actually wind up producing a lot of cyanide. So the thing, I think, that is like one of the only times that I would ever say that to take the pill, which is just the purified amygdalin, might be safer and better than the seeds, just because you don't know how much is in each seed. And Amygdalina, which is a company out of Mexico, has really good B17. Now, let me see the next question. The next question. Is it beneficial listening to frequencies? Absolutely. Well, everything we hear is frequencies, right? All sound is frequencies. And I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but music, you've heard of the Mozart effect with healing. Music is healing. Music can be, if your blood markers are excellent and your NAD You have to continue to do colonoscopies. Okay, let me answer that question in a minute. Anyway, what was I saying before I distracted myself? Oh, yeah, frequencies. Music is a profound phenomenon that is so important to humans, and we're the only in our biosphere. We're really the only ones who appreciate it in the way that we do. It's not that animals don't, because we've seen the effect that animals have with music. It's amazing. If you've ever seen read articles about your brain on music, it's really amazing. But music is frequencies, and it can stimulate and turn on and turn off certain things. The entire universe is frequencies, right? Everything is frequencies. Sound is a frequency, and then you have the electromagnetic spectrum, which are all frequencies, which are in a very small part of the electromagnetic frequencies. Do we have the sensory apparatus to see it? But the stuff we can't see, the far infrared, the gamma, all those that can be extremely, extremely dangerous. So frequencies are dangerous. Frequencies such as 5G, 4G, these are dangerous. So frequencies are healthy and unhealthy. In other words, they can contribute to your well-being, or they can detract from your well-being. So that's the thing. So listening to frequencies can be very, very helpful. Just you've heard heard the tuning bowls or the sound bowls. Ooh, with a particular note. Those are amazing. What's interesting in a room? If you get a group of 100 people, 200 people, you have them sitting down, 50 people, doesn't matter, and everyone starts saying Om, Om. Within less than a minute, everyone's on the same note. Everybody just kind of goes right into it. It's a very fundamental sound. And in Sanskrit, it has a meaning. The meaning of Om is the meaning of the foundation of reality. It's like Om. And even this is not, we got to understand something. This does not violate Christian, Muslim, and Jewish religions. Because remember, in the Christian, Jewish, and Muslim religions, God said, "Let there be light." That's what it says. I didn't write it. Okay, so sound preceded light. So sound is a fundamental, one of the most fundamental aspects of the phenomenal universe that we know of, right? And in the Sanskrit language has defined it as Om, and in fact, it's actually Aum. It's like that. Anyway, it's a profound, incredible sound. It helps you to make your mind quiet. It's a beautiful place to be. Anyway, now thoughts on bioidentical estradiol for menopause symptoms. Okay, this is by G. Picari. Okay, so thoughts on bioidentical hormones for menopausal. Oh, by the way, let me answer that one question. You got tuning bowls. Yeah, they're fantastic tuning bowls. In fact, a very interesting with tuning bowls. Let me just jump back here for a minute. I really like this interacting. It's so much better than just reading. So we got to have two different systems, two different days. Anyway, there was a French researcher who came and gave some lectures in the U.S. and I attended one it was back when I was living in New York, and the sound, he worked with sound and music and all that, and they discovered in their lab that they could fracture cancer cells with A sharp. Now, if people that know music know that A sharp and B flat are the same thing, right? They're the same thing in terms of the tone. They're just named differently because of the scale they're in. But anyway, so that vibration apparently, according to his research, and it looked really pretty good, fractured, destroyed cancer cells. So I could never find a tuning bowl. I had to get, I finally got one made in New York. It was an A sharp. Because, you know, with frequencies, you want to be at the exact one that you're supposed to be at. Remember, because frequencies are additive and subtractive, right? You don't want to add on to something and make it worse, and you don't want to make it less, right? That's okay. So, I mean, you don't want, okay, in other words, here it is. When you talk about frequencies, it's the same thing as what's known as wave physics, the physics of waves. So waves, you can be in a pool. If you're in a pool and you've got some waves going, you know that if you hit it at the right rhythm, you push the water like this, you'll contribute to the wave. You'll make it larger. And on the other hand, if it's out there a little bit and you push it, then the wave, because remember, waves go like this. And so when it goes under, if it goes under, it'll flatten out a wave and make it smaller. Well, and that was the whole idea with Rife. One of the ideas with Rife is that you could completely turn off the frequencies being generated by a cell and it's dead. So, or you could contribute to it. So the idea with music therapy would be that it would contribute to some of our immunological functions and all, you know, because we are subject to that. We're subject to that. Just think about it. Think about when you listen to a song or a music or a piece, like when I listen to Brandenburg concertos, something happens in my being. I'm sure that my immunity is like through the roof. Yeah, and there are other songs too that, you know, a song that meant something to you when you were 12, a song that meant something dearly to you at 14, is deep, deep, deep inside you. And there was a study where they looked at people in nursing homes who were demented, who could not carry on a conversation. And, you know, they would just sit around and it's, you know, tragic if you've ever seen people in a nursing home, you know, wearing diapers, they've got tubes. It's just tragic. Anyway, so they found that if you turn on the music from the generation when they were in their teens, all of a sudden they're coherent. They can speak, they can talk. I mean, wow. Okay, so talk about, sound healing is amazing. And then, so the A sharp. So my idea was this. I like the idea when you know, kinds of therapies with cancer, right? So some therapies with cancer are changing the environment of the body so that it doesn't produce cancer. So it can't produce it. It needs certain it requires chronically fermenting cells. You guys are better than me. Chronically fermenting cells require a certain environment to propagate. So if you change your internal biochemistry through everything that we've talked about, those therapies and diet, cleansing, all that sort of thing. If you change that, then the body is not going to make it. So that's one kind of therapy. There's another kind of therapy where you want to destroy the tumor that's there, right? So you've got a tumor that's causing problems. It's either causing pain, it's obstructing normal physiological function in one way or another, or it's just large and it's just a bummer. I mean, if they're small little tumors and they're not really, think about this. If you got small little tumors and they never grow and they never spread, you'll live a normal life. It's only the ones that are obstructing physiology or causing pain that are really a problem now. The others are real. I'm not saying they're not real. They're real potential problems. But as you may have heard me say before, when MacArthur went to Japan in World War II, and after they destroyed the Japanese spirit by dropping 2 unnecessary, horrific bombs, unnecessary because the emperor had already conceded, and Truman just said, Well, you know what, man? We're ready. We got to use this. We put a lot of time in, and we got to see what it really does. And they did it anyway. They did it anyway. Nagasaki, Hiroshima. The only time, by the way, that's ever been used in warfare. So, just a little side there. Talk about terrorism. Who's the terrorists? Anyway. So in addition to that, we then went there, we Americans, I'm still connected, aren't I? Still in America. Went there and made it illegal to worship their emperor. Now, for Americans, that might seem, well, so what? But for British people, they get an idea. The British people understand what it's like to have a king. Thai people certainly do, so. But anyway, what's the thing? The thing I wanted to bring up, and this is true both in it's true in the Chinese and in the Japanese and the Old Korean, is that the lineage of the king they believed was to God, right? So that's what gave them power, I guess, the power of to control the people. But anyway, so when and there was a thing in Japan, a sort of a philosophy of life that was embodied by the warriors, the samurai. It was called Bushido. And anyway, it was destroyed. It was completely destroyed. That your emperor is gone. We've completely castrated him, politically castrated him, and he became, and they lost that. And it's interesting. You go to Japan, and when I think of old Japan in the Edo period, I think of, these warrior type people who were extremely ethical. Killing is never ethical, but I mean, other than that, but I mean, in terms of the disciplined life and all that sort of thing, amazing disciplines and all things like that. And if you go back to the Edo period, I think it's probably one of the greatest civilizations ever. I don't know how I got on Japan, but bear with me for a minute. One of the greatest. I mean, they had all their clothing was hemp, and they never threw it away. They just sewed it over again. And that's the thing about hemp. Our John D. Rockefeller didn't like hemp. You know that. He didn't like hemp. Why didn't John D. Rockefeller like hemp? Anybody know? Well, for the same reason that he did the Flexner Report and took over the medical profession in the United States and got rid of naturopathy, got rid of chiropractic, didn't get rid of them, but put them down to lower in esteem, which is ridiculous. The reason he did that, why, is because he could sell more petroleum products. He had Standard Oil, remember? Okay, so drugs are petroleum products. Okay, so, well, what else? He had an office. They had offices in New York and they had offices in London. And they were developing this new substance that they could make clothing from that was better than hemp. And since it was they had a New York office and a London office, that's NY for New York and LON for London, and you put those together, and you've got the word nylon, and that's where they got nylon. And nylon needed to become supreme. So suddenly, cannabis became killer weed. I mean, there was this ridiculous movie. I think they showed it to me when I was a kid. I forget the name of it, but it's ridiculous movies of killer weed. So then they wound up making it illegal in America. And then, of course, it followed all around the world. When as before, the world always knew that hemp was a fantastic thing. I mean, it was, clothing and rope. I mean, strong. You go to the Amazon forest where they have completely ripped up so that they can raise animals to send to Sizzler, okay, or to McDonald's, right? The quickest way to reflorestrate it with real plants is hemp. Hemp. Hemp will restore the soil and everything like that. Yeah, it's a medicine for the earth. It's a medicine for us and everything. All that sort of thing. Anyway, so so the point I was getting to, I actually got so segued up. So segued. But the point I was getting to was this: that when MacArthur was there and they had stolen the Bushido and they turned these samurai into salarymen. If you ever go to Japan now and you see the salarymen standing on the trains and then getting off, and they're like, their faces are, I mean, I view it all with sadness, and then they get really drunk at night because that's become their part of their culture. Koreans do too, like to get drunk a lot, much more than Americans. I mean, Americans drink, but Americans have always been more into a variety of mood-altering substances. So Americans, do a little this, little that, little this, little this. But pretty much Asians were like except for China, but the opium, pretty much into alcohol. Yeah. So anyway, what MacArthur did was they did autopsies, and the reason I was bringing this up is I was telling you about the little tumors here and there. Is that when they did, MacArthur said, "Wow, what are all these 115-year-olds doing around here? 120? What's going on here? Why are these guys so in good? Why are they living so long? What's wrong?" And so they started doing autopsies, and they found, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again because anyway, there's lots of they would find that the person had died of a stroke and or heart problem or something like that, but they had a tumor here and a tumor here and a tumor here, but it never grew and it never spread. Ooh, why? Iodine. So it's not only for thyroid. So okay. So anyway, what are your thoughts on biodynamics? Oh, okay. That was the question. How did I go from there to Japan? Wow. I don't even know. I have no idea. The journey. Anyway, so if you're having menopausal symptoms, basically it's due to estrogen and progesterone deficiencies, but also others. There are other hormones that we're not even aware of, deficiencies. But anyway, and their deficiencies relative to what your body has been used to since you went through puberty, right? And so hormones are extremely, extremely powerful. And then your body gets used to them, and the adult you is hormonal. So in men, it's got one set of hormones. In women, it's got another set of hormones. Men are not cyclic per se. Women are cyclic. So anyway, when enough waste, what is aging again? Aging is the accumulation of waste. When that waste accumulates in your liver, you'll have liver problems. You'll have a fatty liver. You'll have things like that. You'll have maybe elevated liver enzymes. If it accumulates in your kidney, you'll have poor kidney function. It'll decrease. If it accumulates in your thyroid, you'll have decreased thyroid. Accumulates in your ovaries or your testes, you have decreased sex hormones, etc. So anyway, when the waste accumulation gets to the point where it's affecting function and hormone production, then we see the phenomenon known as aging. That's when we can actually see it. Okay, but so if you're having menopausal symptoms, the menopausal symptoms are usually, obviously the hot flashes for women, hot flashes, and are probably the biggest complaint they get. And then once they've been menopausal for a while and they haven't done anything to correct it, to replace it, they wind up getting vaginal atrophy, and that can be equally as bad as the hormone flashes. So vaginal atrophy just means that the vaginal walls, the inside vaginal walls become so thin because they don't have the effect of the estrogens in there. They become so thin that they tear easily and they bleed and they're painful and it's dry. And it even, I mean, there's some women that even when they're just walking hurts. It can be really a terrible, terrible thing. And it's so easily fixed. And you don't use estradiol in that with vaginal atrophic vaginitis. You use estriol cream. Now, we use this is on biologically identical hormones. And I just want to tell you that, and we all should give our gratitude to a doctor in Washington, Tahoma. Well, he used to be, I don't know if he's still there. Tahoma, Washington, Jonathan Wright. And Jonathan Wright, along with Gabby, there it is. See this nutritional medicine? Can you guys see that? Nutritional medicine. It's a big deal. It's a textbook. It's a textbook. All the research. Anyway. But Jonathan Wright, because there was a big study called the Women's Health Initiative where hundreds, thousands of women were enrolled all across the country, and they were in hormone replacement, and they were giving them synthetic hormones, well, derived from either pregnant mares or modified artificially. So they were semi-synthetic and anyway. Well, they had to stop the study early because it was obvious who was getting the real hormones, because they were dying from all causes, not just cancer and blood clots and heart disease, everything. Okay, so they stopped it. So the whole thing was, okay, hormone replacement is dangerous and should never do it. That's what they came to say. It turned out later on they found out that it was not hormone replacement. It's a synthetic form of progesterone, which they call progestins. Okay, so progestins are nasty. They still are. But it turns out that even the latest studies show that biologically identical hormones not only do not cause problems, that they are very, very helpful and preventative and all that sort of thing. And you want to restore yourself back to about the age of anywhere from 35 to 42, 43, 44, 45. Because that's the time in your life when your hormones are the most functional, right? You're not yet in decline, and you're not in your 20s where things are right? So that's where you are. So that's a good thing, and that's where my aim is with everybody, is to bring them back to the most functional time of their lives in that. And so even if you're an 85, 90-year-old woman, we're still going to get you back on. And I want to do the estrogen test, estrogen progesterone. So what I'm saying to you though, with your bioidentical estradiol, no, you're going to use some estradiol, and if you have had no estrogen related chronically fermenting conditions with breast or ovaries or uterus or anything like that, then you would do what they call BIOS. BIOS stands for bi to estrogens. And they are estriol and estradiol. Importance is, and we'll say this once again, estradiol and estrone are the two estrogens that stimulate growth, proliferation. Estriol does the opposite. But it still has weaker estrogenic effects that you would want. That's why you can use it vaginally. And the way you use it vaginally is it's 0.03%. That's very, very low in a cream, and it's inserted vaginally before bed, 2 weeks in a row, and then twice a week to maintain. And that'll also restore vaginal biosis, a good, healthy vaginal biome. Very, very important, right? We might overlook that, but we've got the microorganisms that inhabit every part of our body. Remember, 44 species on our forearms, right? 4 species. I mean, they're in our ears. Without them, it doesn't work. Nothing works. Anyway, our oral cavity. That is, we've got a good, healthy microbiome. We should have vaginal And then, of course, gastrointestinal tract. And there are different types of organisms that will live at different parts of the gastrointestinal tract. Different ones will live in the colon versus the small intestine. And then the vaginal biome. Remember, they are, if it's dry, they can't live. So if you've got atrophic vaginitis, you're not going to have the benefit of those microorganisms that are going to contribute to your health. So, and you can get vaginal suppositories, but the first thing you have to do is make the environment okay. And the environment is okay with estriol. So anyway, but in terms of your systemic effect, you can do a bias, which is about 90, and they do bias can be 80-20 or 90-10. I would say 90, always do 90% estriol and 10% estradiol. Okay. However, if someone has ever had a chronically fermenting condition where they're regarding their ovaries, their breasts, or anything like that, but you got to remember the pancreatic fermenters, pancreatic chronically fermenting cells, colonic chronically fermenting cells, lung chronically fermenting cells are all also have a relationship with estrogens. So it's pretty ubiquitous. Estrogen receptors are important part of physiology. But anyway, so the difference is the estriol binds to the beta receptor, the estrone estradiol bind to the alpha. So that's it. So anyway, and you all remember, with just a quickie, the soy is a phytoestrogen that binds to beta. Okay, now what do endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroid, cysts in perimenopause? What to do? Well, if you're in perimenopause, you're real close to being in menopause, and in menopause, adenomyosis, endometriosis, all those things kind of go away for the most part. They stop growing for sure, because all of these situations, you all know what endometriosis is. That's where part of the lining of the endometrium got outside of the uterus somehow, right? So at that time of the month when the uterus is building up and starts building up, let's say some of the endometrium got out and it's sitting on an ovary, or it's sitting on a fallopian tube, or it's sitting somewhere else, and it starts to grow blood vessels and bleed and pain and all that stuff. So, and the adenomyosis is just when these glands go backwards into the muscle of the uterus. So all these stuffs can be problems. Fibroids or growth of those muscles. So they'll all get better with menopause. But right now, what can you do? You're out of balance. This is why these all came to be, which means you probably had a lot of anovulatory cycles where you don't ovulate, and you've got a lot of more estrogen than progesterone. Progesterone undoes it. Progesterone's really good. Anyway, so you need to find a doctor who is experienced with working with biologically identical hormones. Biologically identical hormones means that they're not different. In other words, you can't patent them because they're the same. In order to patent a drug and have a name on it, and the pharmacy, made by Pfizer, made by Moderna. Okay, so they have to change it. So and actually most not most. I'd like to know what percentage. I've never looked it up, but of pharmaceuticals are derived originally from some natural substance that they saw, what it did, and then they modified it so they put an extra whatever chemical moiety on there so that they could now get it patented and then sell it. Anyway, so bioidentical hormones are hormones that you get from the old-fashioned compounding pharmacist where he makes it, and they use usually yams and other things like that. It's plant-based, it's not animal-based. Yeah. And so Now, the question here is top 3 therapies for a MBC patient. MBC. What is MBC? MBC. MBC. What is MBC? Anybody know MBC? Tell me what MBC is. Oh, 432 hertz. Okay, good. Voix. Well, what is this? Voce sapete is in B flat. Oh, it's a good. Is that? Oh, yeah. Play symphonies in B flat. Yes, Everly Brothers. You guys are great. You guys are amazing. But anybody tell me what MBC is? I'm trying to answer this person's question. I got to get to the bottom of this. What is this? What am I looking at? Am I looking at thoughts and dendritic cells? Metastatic breast cancer. Thank you. Okay, you guys, remember, let's remember not to use their acronyms, their phrases, or okay, like like vax and like jab and like pandemic and things like that. Let's not use these words. Okay, so MBC patient. See, they did it. Dome Lu Candy. Listen, they've done it. Okay, everybody, listen to this. I get it. Thank you so much, everybody, for. Okay. Just think of this question, and I understand. Right? A million people would ask the same question. Top 3 therapies for a MBC patient. That's what this. That's not what you are. You're not a MBC patient. You are an amazing human being who's dealing with some chronically fermenting stuff going on. You're not that thing. That's when I say sorcery. When I say what they do with sorcery is they tell you that you are now this. They have named you. They pronounce it with their white coats and their degrees on the wall and all that thing, all that environment, and they just put a spell on you. That's not what you are. But the top 3 therapies for all of us, but for someone who's got chronically fermenting cells that have gone to other parts of their body, is always vitamin C. Vitamin C orally and I would say making sure you're nutriently satisfied. So I'm gonna be able to squeeze a lot into just 3 top therapies. You've already done a cleanse, right? You've done a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12 week juice cleanse, as long as you can. You've had your colon cleaned out. You've had lymphat. You're moving around as much as you can. You might not have a lot of energy and all that sort of thing, but you've already taken care of that, and you're taking you're taking the vitamin A, C, and D, because A, C, and D are so important, and iodine. So you're doing all of that already, right? We already know that. But so now we want to get to some therapeutic vitamin C, and we'll do that with an IV. So I would say that would be one of them. Now, depending on, the other, really depends on, what is meant. You see, that's why I don't like their acronyms either. Another reason why I don't like their acronyms is because they're completely non-communicative. They don't communicate. If you have a breast tumor that has broken through the skin, and that's all, it's still metastatic. It's still stage 4. Right. And so anyway, so depending if you're what organs, I don't know the degree to which this has progressed and where it is and all that, but I would say vitamin C, and then we would do ozone and But I wouldn't use that as number 2. I would say vitamin C, and then now, as I said, that's why. See, you're not that, and nobody is that MBC patient. Okay, so who knows? I don't know what's going on with your dental. If you've got cavitations, that would be number 1. If you got cavitations up here, if you got root canals, this is number 1. If you've got parasite, so there's so many things we have to look at. But in terms of therapies, I'd say, vitamin C, curcumin, intravenous, hyperthermia, whole body hyperthermia, 6-hour program, not the way they do it all over the place. That's very popular. Yes, I think they should change the word functional medicine to fashion medicine, because that's what it is. It's become fashion medicine. It really bothers me. It really bothers me. They do what's fashionable. Anyway, it really bothers me. So, listen, I don't know how to say your name. Don't lose Candy. We got to talk, because I don't know what your situation is, but at least vitamin C, clean your body out. Make sure you're getting A, D, and C in good amounts. You're sipping 7 to 7. All the stuff that we talk about, all this stuff is very important. What? This is a great question. Which one? The top 3 therapies? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Well, okay. The top 3. Well, here's what I want to say. The top 3 therapies for metastatic fermenting cells, chronically fermenting cells from any primary, and that is, you got to first of all clean out, and that means cavitations, that means parasites, that means all the garbage that we've collected over the years. We've got to do a cleanse. And then we've got to give ourselves all the nutrients that are necessary for the body to get strong again and rebalance itself and eliminate chronically fermenting cells. That's number 1. Number 2 is, vitamin C, IV vitamin C. And then what I'd have to say is psychoneuroimmunology, right? Taking care of your immune system through turning off the mind. It's got to be up there, like with vitamin C and meditation. You see, you're asking me to give you 3. You can't do only 3 of anything. You've got to do it all. You got to do it all, especially if it's metastatic. You got to do it all. There's nothing you can leave out. You got to do it all. You got to cleanse. You got to eat right. You got to sleep early. You got to move around as much as possible. You got to get intravenous vitamin C. You've got to get, and if you've got if you've got access to a 10-pass ozone or EBO, do that. If it's really causing problems, you can do IPT for a while. That's very important therapy in certain conditions. It's very important and necessary. Have to do it in certain conditions. So there's really so many variables there. Thoughts on castor oil packs for a breast tumor? Breast tumor. I think castor oil packs are really, really very good on liver and other. They help to draw things out. With a breast tumor, I don't think that it's possible for the castor oil packs to have that much of an impact. I mean, if you really wanted to draw out the tumor and have it leave with all of its tentacles and all that, you go find a Native American practitioner who has many years of experience with the black salve. Black salve is a painful long ordeal, but it's incredible. But remember, if you've got a tumor of chronically fermenting cells, you can't just pull it out. You've got to, again, remember, we've got to work systemically, because to remember that wherever there's a tumor, a group of chronically fermenting cells, it is a manifestation of what's going on systemically. So we've got to change systemically what's going on. And by the way, if you successfully changed systemically, you successfully clean everything out and it would go away. It would no longer need to be there. The body would reabsorb it. You got to turn on the immune system and do all. That's the other thing for these top 3 therapies. Geez, we got to use different kinds of immune therapies. So, I mean, yeah, very, very difficult to answer that question, as you can see. And the top 3 supplements for the same person would be, again, there's no top 3. If there was a top 3 I would say A, D, and C. So that's it. That's it. Okay, so vitamin D3 deficiency relationship with cancer patients. Bloodroot capsules, I don't know. If they work, they're good. I mean, if you got real things, intravenous mistletoe, yeah, I agree. Man, all these things are really, 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 really. There's so much. It's very important. D3 deficiency. Even Sloan Kettering, even the conventional people, even they recognize that a vitamin D3 level below 30 is very dangerous. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. You should have your level up around 90 to 120 there. Take as much as you need. Don't listen to them. I was reading, they say, so we think that taking 1,000 to 2,000 a day is reasonable. Reasonable. What the hell does that mean? Is the goal to be reasonable according to whatever you think reasonable is? Or is the goal to have adequate amounts of this molecule in our body? Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. So if you got to take 30,000 like a day, like I do, and then you get up to there, and then you're getting, I might check one day. Oh, I'm 180. Okay, yeah. So I won't take it for 2 days, and then I get back to it. Yeah. You want to keep it high because vitamin D3 is incredible. But it comes into our body. The natural way would be that the sunlight would have an effect on the cholesterol in our body and through our skin, and it breaks the ring, right? It breaks the cholesterol ring, which is like these 4 rings. It breaks one and turns it into a form, and then it goes to the liver and it gets turned into vitamin D2, and then it goes to the kidney and becomes vitamin D3, which is calcitriol, which is the active form. And then there's a vitamin D binding receptor on cells, which affects all these genes. So it's really an important part of physiology and growth of cells and all that sort of thing. Okay, so it's very, very important. So without it, you're not getting that. And a big part, originally we thought of vitamin D as having only to do with, calcium absorption, calcium metabolism, but it's far more than that, as are all hormones. But the other thing that's very important to keep in mind about vitamin D is that it's got to be escorted around the body. So there's a protein that the liver produces called the vitamin D binding protein. It's called GC. It's also called DBP. Of course, they're acronyms. The vitamin D binding protein. Anyway, it binds it, but it also activates macrophages. And when you don't have it, and by the way, the cancer cells produce an enzyme that produce an enzyme that inactivates that enzyme. Inactivates the ability of this binding protein to activate macrophages, and in effect shuts them off. Okay, and that's why we use what's called GC-MOF. GC is the binding protein made by the liver, and the MOF stands for macrophage activating factor. And this was discovered by Dr. Yamamoto in 1992. And then, of course, it was actually, I think it's right around that time, too, we were coming to understand that macrophages also have two conditions. One condition, they're in there getting rid of these chronically fermenting cells that form a tumor. And in the other one, it's actually helping it grow. So what we want to do, what we've learned to do at Oasis is to first, before we give you GC-MOF, let's get you back to your M1 state, your macrophages, so that they're going to kill. You don't want to activate a macrophage that's already helping the tumor. But the relationship, so if you're low, you're going to get cancer. If you're low, you got to get it up. And unless you're in like the certain latitudes of planet Earth and living there, right? Sub-equatorial zones and equatorial. Unless you're there, if you're in these higher or too low, you won't get enough rays to produce the vitamin, what we call vitamin D. And so you've got to take it orally, right? Now, if you live in these areas, then you need to get outside and have full body exposure, where you can wear pants and a bra unless if you're alone, don't. I mean, if you're with friends or whatever, don't. You don't have to wear anything if you're with friends and whatever. But you just need as much body exposure to the intensity without burning. You don't want to burn, right? So, you probably wouldn't want to do more than an hour out midday or around here. Yeah, I couldn't do an hour. But you don't want to get burned, but you do want to get that. So anyway, or take it orally. It's essential for immune enhancement. So someone's making a comment here. I'm sure if you're on Instagram, you can see you've got to take loads of magnesium with D3 above 15,000 units a day. Well, to prevent hypercalcemia. As this day and age is caused by EMF. Yeah, there's a lot. You got some really good points there that you're making, but you're right. We need magnesium anyway. Magnesium, most of us are magnesium deficient. Most of us are magnesium deficient. We just don't get enough magnesium. And remember, magnesium is green plants. So you eat the more green plants you get, the more bioavailable magnesium you're going to get. And yes, EMF paralyzes the voltage-gated calcium channels, and calcium, even if you were just like you weren't taking a lot of vitamin D and anything, and you were still taking magnesium, you're still going to get that calcium going to go flying into the cells and they stimulate nitric oxide production. You get peroxynitrates, then you get hydroxyl radicals, and you get damage. That's how it happens. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But you need to be taking magnesium. So in addition to the to vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, and the iodine, in addition, you've got the minerals that I suggest are zinc, magnesium, manganese, boron, and selenium. Those are the big ones. Every day, throughout the day. Okay, so could I talk a little bit about collagen? I heard people making. Okay, I think we talked about this one time before, but let me mention it again because it's an important concept. You can't take collagen. Whatever you take into your body and you eat it, you swallow it, it will get broken down into its constituent parts, and you can only absorb amino acids. You can't absorb the collagen. Protein is too large. You can't absorb it. So you're going to absorb amino acids, which you're going to get in other ways too. So, and then it goes into your amino acid pool. That that's a concept. It's not that there's a pool of amino acids. It's just a mental construct. So, but taking collagen is not going to increase collagen. What you need to do is increase collagen. Is you got to have, there's certain of the B vitamins, and vitamin C is essential to making it, right? In fact, that's what happens in scurvy when you have vitamin C deficiency. You wind up getting, your skin gets, your subcutaneous tissues just fall apart. You start bleeding and stuff like that. Because you're not making collagen. Yeah. So anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that. I would make sure you got the C and the different B vitamins, and then all the minerals that are associated with those enzymes. So everything we're saying would be better than the collagen won't help you. How to reverse or at least slow down dementia? Please tell me. Your mom is checking out mentally. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Dementia is basically the brain is full of waste products, and the blood's not flowing, and it's got lots of oxidants. And the other thing that happens with when you get older is that cells become what are called senescent. And when they go into a senescent state, in fact, with cancer, one of the ways the body protects itself from becoming a cancer cell is it becomes a senescent, senescence, SENESCENCE, senescent cell. When it becomes a senescent cell, it can no longer become cancer. But now it's not doing anything except producing all these enzymes and these inflammatory enzymes. And that's where the term inflammaging came from. So as you get older, you're just producing lots and lots. So you have a lot of senescent cells. You're producing lots of and you've got this chronic underlying inflammation, and your immunity's down because your thyroid and because your thymus is not functioning anymore. So that's it. That's probably, what aging is all about. Definitely senility and definitely dementia and stuff like that. So you've got to, of course, get the TA1, thymosin alpha 1, get your T cells back up if your mom is old. Okay. Number 2, you can get some senolytic medications like NMN and 5-amino 1-MQ. Okay, these are peptides that actually make that are senolytic. Fisetin is senolytic. Rapamycin is senolytic. These are senolytic. In other words, they get rid of senescent cells. You got to get rid of these senescent cells. And then obviously, if you've got all this inflammaging, you need lots of antioxidants, which means you got to be taking your vitamin A and your vitamin E, vitamin D, and vitamin C to the maximum amounts, right? And the minerals associated with all of the antioxidants. All right, so that's very, very important. Now, and chelation, you got to get rid of a lot of heavy metals, so you can do chelation. So for dementia, the other one are some of the amazing peptides that help with cognitive function, such as CMAX, SCMAX, and what was that other one called? I don't use it as much anymore, so C-Lank, SELANK. Okay, and then there are other ones that are also neurotrophic. They make the nerves, your brain grow. But basically cleaning out, you got to store the blood flow, movement, exercise. She's got to get around. She's got to do, I don't know how much her mom weighs and all that stuff, but cleansing and all that sort of thing. You got to just really go on a super thing. Then you can reverse it. You can. And so she should be getting intravenous vitamin C. So we got to get rid of those, and vitamin C gets into the brain. So what do you think of high dose vitamin C in an IPT manner using glucose in the mix to activate? All right, well, it's an interesting idea, but the problem is this: is that in cancer cells, they upregulate a receptor called GLUT1, and GLUT1 grabs glucose and oxidized ascorbate, vitamin C, which is called DHA. And that's what happens to a lot of the vitamin C that we get IV. It'll become DHA, and then it's picked up as DHA. And the second it gets into the cell, the glutathione puts an electron back in there and makes it ascorbate. And now it does its job and kills the cancer cell by producing peroxides. So now, would insulin enhance the uptake of ascorbate into a cancer cell? And probably could, since the mechanism by which insulin potentiated therapies work is they change the fatty acid, stearic acid, to oleic acid, which makes the cell more permeable. Yeah. I mean, it could help. I don't know how. I don't know. It's a good idea. But keep in mind that you would never add glucose, because if you add glucose, the cancer cells are going to pick that up preferentially, and they're going to get full, and they're going to say, I don't need anything else. I'm full now. Thanks. Okay, so you can never give glucose. It's got to be IPT. Is the only way it works is when this person is fasting. The only way it works. Then because why? Because you want because the cancer cells have more insulin receptors. You want them to grab the insulin first, to have the effects of the insulin first before the rest of the cells in the body, so that you can use it as a targeting mechanism. So you want the cancer cells to open their mouths first, saying, feed me, and then before the other cells have. If you've given glucose, you destroy that ability. So you can no longer target with it. My platelets are very low and my hemoglobin is very low. What's going on? Yeah, well, if you had chemo or radiation, that would account for it, because your platelets and your hemoglobin are both made in your bone marrow. I wonder if your white count's low as well. Other than that, if you haven't been getting anything, all of a sudden those are low, then you're being exposed to something that's poisoning your bone marrow, and you got to find out what that is. I don't know exactly what your I'm not sure of what your situation is, but yeah, exactly. Goodness gracious, all. I like that. Can you do vitamin C every day? Yes. As a matter of fact, good question. As a matter of fact, what I want to do is someday be able to put people on to try to get a home pump, so that we can put them on like 2 weeks, 3 weeks continuous vitamin C. And of course, the levels would be much, much lower, because you don't require that much. Once you've got up to therapeutic levels, then there's much less to maintain it. It might be as low as 5 grams per hour or something, 3 grams per hour. Who knows? But because remember, vitamin C, what does it do? Whoa! Epigenetically, it demethylates. Therefore, it turns back on all these things that were suppressed through methylation. So epigenetically, big deal. Picked up by the DHA, gets picked up and exhausts the cancer cell's ability with the small amount of antioxidant enzymes it has. If it's in a high enough dose, the pro-oxidant effect will actually kill the cancer through peroxide, as we all know. And then finally, one of the other big ones is that um, it is the cofactor necessary for the dioxygenase enzymes, which are responsible for modulating or turning off HIF1 alpha, which is the pathway that makes cancer. So, and that, in addition to the pro-oxidant is just getting high enough levels to actually kill it. So it's just it's an amazing, and it does even more than that. More than that, but those are just the big four. Why is central necrosis so bad in with chronically fermenting cells in the breast? It's not. You wouldn't say that it's bad. It just means central necrosis means that the tumor is growing. It's outgrown its supply in the center, so it becomes necrotic. So it's kind of growing this way. That's what it means. You just got to stop the growth systemically with all the things that we're talking about. Bordeaux, yes. But so if you're talking about central necrosis and chronically fermenting breast cells, and you're also another question here about the platelets and hemoglobin low, it's probably because of your you've had some sort of chemo or radiation or something like that. But necrosis just means that it's outgrowing its supply and it's becoming, and the part in the middle just lost this blood supply, so the cells died. They became necrotic. So we got to stop it. Yeah. See love, be love. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you have no thyroid and you're on T3, T4 meds, can your body still fight chronically fermenting cells? Well, yes. If you have no thyroid and you're taking T3, T4, then you're going to have the same benefit as anyone who had a thyroid. Yeah. So, and I would get it in a natural way. And remember, you make sure you're determining how much you need by your basal body temperature. Should I take Kirkman Extract instead of getting it from food? If so, how much? For chronically fermenting cells. Here's the problem with curcumin is that we only absorb 3% of what we eat. So we'd have to eat a whole lot, even if we're taking it in pill form. So they add pepperine in some formulations so that you can absorb more. But I think that's only up to maybe 5%. So really, if you've got chronically fermenting cells, take I'm not sure, like 500 milligrams 3 times a day, 4 times, or take 2 or 3 of them 3 times a day. But still, you're not going to get enough to get up where you want to get to. However, it's still going to be doing a lot of good. But try to get it IV if you can. But yeah, take 2 or 3 capsules of curcumin. Now, and it also works good synergistically, but it's really good. I mean, curcumin is amazing with chronically fermenting cells. But one of the main things it does is it shuts down NF-kappa beta, which is part of the pathways. It's the main pathway, one of the main triggers sitting in the middle of inflammation. It shuts it off. So there's you can take also frankincense, which is doing the same kind of thing. That's quite the same. Quercetin and ginger, things like that. All right, let's see other questions here. Okay, we're getting close. Okay, so here's a good question. Regarding chia seed porridge, word has it coconut milk is saturated fat. So what do we use? Well, what I use is, number one, I make fresh walnut milk, almond milk, pumpkin seed milk. I can just make fresh right away and just use that. Now, coconut milk is saturated fat, but we need some saturated fats. Saturated fats are good not from animals, but from plants. They're very good, and we need them. In fact, saturated fat. The saturated fats and the mono unsaturated fats, which means you just have one double bond, are in the mitochondrial membrane, are directly proportional to the length of life. So they're very important in certain degrees. So we need saturated fats. Our membranes of our cells make a fatty acid called stearic acid, which is a saturated fat, to help keep structure. So saturated fats are necessary, but as you're right, so not too many, but so you can use any kind of nut. I use nuts and seeds in the morning. I soak them in the morning, and then mistletoe is amazing. The question here is there a mistletoe tea I can drink daily? I have never heard of it. I think you've got to get mistletoe into the blood. I don't know. That would be a good idea, and I wonder if it would work. So that would be a great question to know the answer to. But I know that mistletoe is amazing, and doing subcutaneous injections to get a bigger reaction, or doing intravenous, very, very good. Okay, TikTok topic. The type of iodine I use is, and then I get, anyway. So, can I put Lugol iodine inside vagina for ovarian cancer or cysts? Yeah. And just paint it. I don't like Q-tips because I think the cotton on the Q-tip absorbs too much of it. If you can, like, go to a little like a art store and get a paintbrush, those little paintbrushes, and just kind of try to paint the walls. It'll get absorbed, go up into the ovaries, go up into the yeah. So because we know that's how it works with fibrocystic breast problems, right? It goes up through the ovaries. So yeah, just paint the inside, and it's up closer to the cervix, so the back part of the vagina. Good idea. Very good. How do you find these doctors? I went through chemo and radiation in 2020. It's horrible. Yes, right. Okay. Oh, so what is integrative oncology? Was the topic. So here's the thing. I guess you got to go whatever state you're in, city you're in, look for integrative oncology. You got to make sure that they're not associated with a big institution like Treatment Cancer Centers of America. Bad news. Or any other institution, because then it's not real. Then they're just trying to, they realize there's a lot of money in alternative medicines that they're trying to cash in on it. And integrative oncology is, it's hard for you to know when you're looking on the websites of who's real. But just oncologist is a doctor who, has been working in the field for long enough, is well trained, has good credentials, and make sure that they are aware of the effect of diet, that they involve, that part of their program is not just sticking IVs into you, but it's working with your diet and your lifestyle and your relationships and your mind, things like that. And that involves cleansing the body in all the different variety of ways, as well as using intravenous vitamin C, intravenous curcumin, intravenous quercetin, intravenous ozone, intravenous artesunate, intravenous B17, all of these things. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to find people that know all of that and also are doing the immune system. But you got to do diligence and try to figure that out. I know what you went through is horrible. And I'm just hoping and praying you didn't get get spiked. Okay, so here's a question from Facebook. Yes, but the question is, if there are lifestyle changes that need to be made, does a person have the time to manifest whatever results may be necessary? That's why I don't think cancer can ever be defeated by change in diet alone from a natural standpoint. Powerful antioxidants must be included with a scientific record behind them. Well, I understand why you're thinking that way, but I've seen it. There's a story I tell about a woman in 2001. But you can never say diet alone, because it's not the person's mind, their attitude, they knew they were going to heal, all that sort of thing. It's much more. They're moving around. It's never diet alone, and even antioxidants alone, because you need to actually get rid of the tumor. You need oxidants, not antioxidants, and that's why high dose vitamin C is given in a high dose form, because then you're getting the pro-oxidant effect of it. Yeah. Recommendation to a new mother is scheduled or had a C-section. Just do all the things to get healthy as possible, get good sleep, all that stuff. That's a big difference between someone who's scheduled and someone who's had one, because if you've had one, well, in either case, you've got to clean your body out, make sure you're healthy, clean, because you've got a newborn baby, you take care of them. And then eat right, go to bed early, and not possible when you got a new baby, at least the first 3-4 months, 6 months. But anyway, just got to get really healthy to prepare for that C-section, or all the things that we talk about: diet, cleansing, sleep, movement, have congenial relationships. Is there a way to determine if I require aromatase inhibitors for the next 5 years as recommended by my oncologist? I have plus negative chronically fermenting cells in my breast. Perimenopausal lumpectomy, 802, radiation ending. Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, by looking at the literature, they recommend doing an aromatase inhibitor if you're peri or postmenopausal. That they would not recommend. This is only for the estrogen receptor to block it. But as I've said, you can use estriol. You can use 2-methoxyestradiol, and you can use the soy, all the phytoestrogens from soy, to get not only more of an effect than they're talking about. And you want to bring your body back into a balance, your hormones need to be balanced, Linda. So when you go into menopause, of course, you're going to go into an imbalance. And so you want to maintain that balance with biologically identical hormones, but using estriol, not the other ones. Yeah, and then, diet, super clean diet. Yeah, lifestyle, naturopathic support. Yeah, yep. Looking for an objective and personalized metric to say, yes, these meds are beneficial for you. Well, you can't. It's your overall well-being, and of course, all the different, markers that we look at in the blood, which is, LDH, ferritin, iron. We look at lymphocytes. Your subset. You look at your T4s, your T8s, your CD19, CD56. We look at all the different immune cells, because we want to work on that. We want to work on keeping your immunity balanced, and You don't need ovarian suppression pharmacologically. And the aromatase inhibitors, all they're doing is blocking testosterone from being converted into estrogen, estradiol. That's all they're doing. But remember, iodine, the molecular iodine, will increase the amount of estriol your body produces because it's a part of the metabolism of estrone into estriol. So that's very, very important. Yeah, but you definitely don't need an aromatase inhibitor to accomplish what you want to accomplish, Linda. You don't. As I said, soy, flax, um, cleansing, all the things that we talk about. Um, and then you can work with someone who knows what they're doing with estriol. And so yeah, you don't need to do that necessarily. Or you could do it 3 times a week instead of every day, because the problems comes from the aromatase inhibitors are like they use 1 milligram a day, and that really changes a lot of others. The side effects are due to that. You could do small amounts, but there are also natural aromatase inhibitors. And there's herbs like chrysin. So you need to work with somebody who knows what they're doing in this regard. Oh, it's late. So what cop? I didn't realize, you guys. It's very late. I have a consult now. So sweaty cup. And sorry I can't see comments from you guys in Facebook, but I just can't see them. So anyway, aloha and have a fantastic week. Be healthy.